Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Monday to everybody. What a wild weekend of college football. This has been a crazy year this year, hasn't it? So let's just take a look at these conferences and go through team by team. I don't think a lot has really changed in my mind about which teams and which conference are good or not living up to the hype or whatever you want to call it. Let's just go through one by one here and see what's going on around the landscape of college football after 3 weeks, right? So we are basically a quarter of a way through the regular season. All right, so let's just go out to the Pac-12. I'm not really surprised by anything in the Pac-12. Right now, the ACC has been given the card as the worst conference in college football, and I'm not going to argue with that, but I don't think the Pac-12 is far behind. What's the real difference here? They have, in my opinion, they have Oregon, who's the best team in the conference. Utah still looks good. That's one of the preseason darlings from everybody, especially in the media, that has a chance to win the Pac-12 and possibly make even a run at the playoffs. We'll have to see. I haven't really played anybody great so far. They are 3-0, so we'll see how they go moving forward. Of course, Oregon, 2-1, and with a close loss week 1 to Auburn. So they still look like the best. Now, outside of that, now UCLA is a complete dumpster fire. Washington State, I think, is a little bit overrated and overhyped, like they are every year. They're one of these teams that's very streaky. With the air raid offense they run, they can score 100 points. But their defense isn't great, and depending if they play a team with an elite defensive line like a Clemson or an Alabama or an Ohio State or Georgia or somebody like that in the playoffs, they would get absolutely murdered. But anyway, so I don't think Washington State's a real threat to anybody. The same with Southern Cal. Southern Cal is, I think, a little bit of fool's gold, right? They're looking a little bit better, even though they have a freshman quarterback in there. But I don't think they can compete with anybody outside of that conference necessarily either. So it's basically Oregon and Utah, the same two people that everyone was talking about before the season, the same people talking about after 3 weeks. Arizona State did happen to beat Michigan State, though. More on Michigan State in a minute. All right, so let's move to the Big 12. Nothing's really changed in the Big 12 as far as I'm concerned either. Nothing shocking here, right? Oklahoma's destroying everybody. Texas is a really good team. That's going to be a great game. The Red River rivalry, Red River shootout, whatever they would call it these days that's politically correct. I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to call it the Red River rivalry or whatever. Anyway, so Texas only lost to a very good LSU team, although LSU looked a little bit underwhelming this week or got a slow start, but they ended up blowing out whoever they were playing. But the only other team that I think you need to look out for is the team that I said before the season was my dark horse to win the Big 12, and that is TCU. TCU is undefeated, and they haven't really played anybody that's that great either, but I think they're winning pretty convincingly, and that's always a team to watch out for. They had a down year last year, but it's very, very unlikely to see Gary Patterson have multiple down years in a row. Normally when the TCU has a down year, they bounce back the next year under Gary Patterson, and that's what I expect to happen this year. So keep an eye on the Horned Frogs. Outside of those three teams, no, there's nobody else who has a chance to win the Big 12. Can you think of one? I can't. Iowa State lost to Iowa, a very close game, a rivalry game yesterday. I think Oklahoma is an average Oklahoma State, is an average team at best. West Virginia is not very good. So there you go. Now, we'll get to Kansas in a minute. Yes, Kansas blew out Boston College, which is very disappointing for the ACC and for Boston College in particular. But no, Kansas is not back. And as a matter of fact, I'm not sure Kansas was ever here to be back, but they've always been gone. Let's move on to the Big Ten. Look, the Big Ten is Ohio State and everybody else. I know people want to throw some other teams in there that are very good, and that's fine. Listen, Penn State had a struggle win against Pitt. All right, Penn State was ranked number 13 in the country, I think. Pitt's not a very good team. All right, they're just not. So I think Penn State's a little bit overhyped and overrated. Maryland, well, we were all eating the Maryland magic potion. Eating the Maryland hype. After 2 weeks, they scored over 150 points in their first 2 weeks of football against nobodies. And this week, they went on the road to Temple and lost to Temple. I'm glad I didn't bet on that game on my Bet Now picks. I know a lot of people that came into my comments section were telling me, how did you not bet on Maryland? Maryland's going to stomp Temple. Well, no, they didn't. And I don't know. I'm not writing off Maryland yet because, maybe they just were starting to read their own headlines and feel themselves a little bit too much. And they just looked past Temple. I don't know. But they still shouldn't be losing to Temple. I thought that Maryland, after the first couple weeks, might be a legitimate threat to both Ohio State and the rest of the teams in the East of the Big Ten, but I'm not so sure about that now. Michigan State lost to Arizona State. No excuse for that. Sorry, I don't care what anybody says. Michigan State is not a good team. Minnesota has had 2 struggle wins. This is another team that people were talking up before the season, saying that they were going to have a breakthrough year, right? And maybe even challenge for the West title, the Big Ten West title. No. They had a struggle win against Fresno State, and I think they had a struggle win against San Diego State. And I know you guys are going to sit here and tell me, but Fresno State's a good team, and San Diego State's a good team. I don't care. Look, if you're a Big Ten team, and you're having visions of winning the West, struggling against non-Power 5 teams is not going to help your case. All right, so when they get into Big Ten play, Minnesota is not going to be that dominant. If they're struggling against non-Power 5 teams, they're not going to have a chance in hell whenever they play legitimate teams in the Big Ten. So forget about Minnesota. Yeah, they can keep rowing that boat all they want. They're going to row that boat right out of contention, I promise. So at the end of the day, I still think Wisconsin looks like the best team in the West, and Ohio State is so far ahead of everybody else in the East. It's not even funny. Yes, including Michigan. Now, we do get to see Wisconsin and Michigan play this weekend. I believe that Wisconsin's going to win this game. I believe that Michigan's massively overrated this year, like they have been every other year that Jim Harbaugh has been there, and actually even before he got there. So I can't wait for everybody to see what I've been seeing for a while now, and that is Jim Harbaugh is in over his head. He's overpaid. Michigan has no business being a mediocre Big Ten team when they have one of the highest paid coaches in America. And this guy's supposed to be a quarterback guru, Jim Harbaugh is. He can't recruit a good quarterback or an elite one. Hasn't done it since he's been there. The best quarterback they've had is Shea Patterson, and they got him from Ole Miss. And even he is not playing very good. He played better at Ole Miss as a quarterback than he's playing at Michigan. What does that tell you? That's coaching. So, anyway, yeah, the Big Ten is Ohio State. I think they're going to – listen, it's still early in the season, but I have a feeling that Ohio State's just going to run away with the Big Ten this year. I know that's been very contentious the past few years, and there may be one team out there that does decide to contend with them. But Ohio State might look better this year than they've looked in several years, and that's scary. Justin Fields is playing out of his mind great, especially for a first-year starter. And if you're a Georgia fan, you got to be banging your head against the wall watching this kid go up to Columbus and just look the way he looks. It's ridiculous. He's a Heisman contender at this point. All right, so let's move on to the SEC. The SEC and the ACC are going to be short because nothing's definitely changed in either one of those conferences. The SEC is still Alabama, Georgia, and I think maybe LSU can be thrown in that category. Outside of that, I just don't see anybody that has a chance. Maybe Auburn. People will say Auburn. Auburn has a maybe very, very outside chance. But based on what I've seen so far, it's those three teams. It's LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. The rest of them are on a different level. Unfortunately, Felipe Franks, I don't know if he broke his ankle, dislocated his ankle, something like that. He's out for the season, it looks like. I'm not sure that, no offense. I'm sorry that happened to the kid. I don't wish injury on anybody. I'm not making fun of him or anything like that. But I think, unfortunately, for Florida, it wouldn't have mattered if Felipe Franks was hurt or not. I think your season was pretty much over just based on the way you're playing, the way you look, before Felipe even got hurt. So I know they have this Trask kid that's come in, and so we'll see how We'll see how he looks, but I just don't think Florida's anywhere even close to Georgia's level to compete with them in the East, and certainly not on any of those other teams in the West that I named, LSU or Alabama, to compete for the SEC. So, look, it's just a question of who's going to challenge Alabama in the West. Can LSU challenge them? And who's going to challenge? I don't think anybody's going to challenge Georgia in the East at this point, after what I saw this past weekend. So basically, can Georgia challenge whoever that team is that comes out of the West, either LSU or Alabama? That's a long way down the road. We'll see. The ACC is pitiful and embarrassing. You got Clemson there sitting at the top of the mountain. After that, who do you got? Right? I don't know. I mean, I think Duke's a really good team, not anywhere close to Clemson's level. I think Virginia's a very good team, not anywhere close to Clemson's level. Outside of that, the rest of them are just looking awful right now. Yeah, Georgia Tech lost to Citadel. Boston College got blown out by Kansas. I mean, should I keep going? I don't even know where else to go. Now, Duke did blow out whoever they played, Middle Tennessee State, right? Of course, that's a nobody. I don't know, man. Something's going to have to happen. And I don't think anybody can challenge Clemson. Now, Syracuse obviously is fool's gold. Everyone thought they were going to be good this year just because they were the past 2 years. We know now that that's not true. Clemson played a C-minus game as far as their standards go, and they still won 41-6. Now Clemson's defense looks amazing. A lot of people are surprised about the defense being so good. I mean, I tried to tell you all offseason, Clemson's not losing talent. They're losing experience. The defensive line they have now is every bit as talented as the one that before them. They just have less experience. And, of course, on the back end of the defense, the linebacker and cornerbacks, defensive backs and safeties are probably the best combination, the most experienced combination we've had in many years. So this is a dangerous team. As soon as the offense starts clicking, let's look. This is how good Clemson is. Trevor Lawrence threw for 400 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns, and ran for another touchdown. And he was getting criticized all over Twitter and Facebook by Clemson fans about not playing good. Now, I'm not going to go into whether or not I agree with that because I think people already know where I stand on this. I'm not saying that stats mean everything because they don't. I'm not a stat guy. But you don't accidentally throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. That doesn't happen accidentally. All right, so I think that he's getting a little bit too much criticism. Yes, he did throw 2 interceptions. If you want to criticize the interceptions, go for it. But criticizing him, saying that he's not playing well, I'm not buying into that. I'm not buying into it at all. How many other teams out there would love to have a quarterback throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game last week? Almost all of them would be happy with that. There's not many quarterbacks last week that did better than that. And, of course, the score speaks for itself. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I think Clemson's going to be fine. I wouldn't worry about it. They're going to get better as the year goes on, and the time to peak is at the end of the season, starting with South Carolina. And then after that, hopefully, whoever we play in the ACC title game, and then, of course, hopefully the playoffs. That's the time to be peaking, not in week 3 against a dilapidated Syracuse team. All right, guys, so there you have it. We will definitely be getting into the games coming up this coming weekend more here later this week. But thank you for your time, and I will see you guys soon. Have a great day. Pigskin Pete is checking out.